Hey, what's up? It's Mark at alchemist.camp, and I recently got a new Windows machine. I'm going to set it up for web development. So for me, that means I'm going to put WSL on it, and I'm going to put Postgres on it, and I'm also going to install ASDF, and I'm going to make a few customizations so that Postgres starts on boot up, which is not that easy to do, or at least not that obvious how to do at first if you're using WSL and Ubuntu because, well, we'll get into it in a minute. So, if you don't know me, I'm Mark at Alchemist Camp. I make lots of tutorials for Elixir programmers. The vast majority of my audience are on Linux or on Mac, but there are some Windows users. In fact, I was one of them myself at the beginning and found it hard to find tutorials on this. So I just want to go through the setup and save some other people pain that I had when I got started. So first, we're going to hit Windows R to run. This is very small font because I'm on a large monitor, but basically I'm just running PowerShell. And I'm going to hold Control Shift as I hit Enter so that I run it as an administrator. This is very important. We've got to run it as an admin in order to do everything we need to do. I'm going to up the font size a bit just because this is a huge monitor and I know some of you may be watching this tutorial on a smaller screen. Actually, the very first thing you need to do possibly is update Windows. So if you're on Windows 10 or later, you can definitely install WSL. However, some versions, some older versions of Windows 10 didn't support it. So first run Windows Update and then continue on here. So we're going to run enable Windows optional feature. I guess we can just auto-complete that with a tab. Online and feature name. Feature name is virtual machine. Did I make a mistake here? I guess you just can't auto-complete this one. Virtual machine platform. Okay, it's running everything it needs to enable it. And yeah, I'm not going to restart it. We've got one other feature to enable that will probably also require a reboot. So we'll enable Windows optional feature. And once again, online. And this one, feature name is Microsoft Windows. Feature name Microsoft dash Windows subsystem. All right, that was exciting. I did choose to restart Windows after that feature, and so, as you might guess, that crashed my video recorder, and we gotta reopen PowerShell and go through this again. I'm gonna actually just tap up a couple times so you can see my last two commands. So first I enabled the virtual machine platform, and then I enabled Microsoft Windows Subsystem Linux. So with this done, we should be able to run WSL-H, and we see we have something installed. So the most common things I do with this are probably -L for list and -L-V for list verbose, but we don't have anything installed. So now we're just going to make sure we're on the right architecture. So run system info, and this will return all kinds of information about our system. We don't really need all of that. I just want to get the system type. And this is important because if you see something different on your machine than we're about to hear from mine, you will not be able to follow these instructions. This will work for an x86 based PC. All right, WSL, so -L is for list, the same thing as --list, like so. All right, we don't have anything installed yet, but we can add another option here for online. This will show us all the available distributions that we can just install. So we're going to grab Ubuntu 2004 since that's the newest stable version. So we can do that with WSL -install -D is for distro Ubuntu -20.04. It's kind of interesting messaging there. All right, so as we're setting up, it asks for a new Unix username. Oh yeah, there we go. Make the name Mark, and my password is going to be ASDF. Okay, so this has created a new user, and you can see we're now in /home/Mark, and this user that was just created has sudo privileges. So I can do sudo ls/etc, and I've got to put in my own password, and now we can see everything that's in etc. Okay, so Ubuntu is installed. However, we're going to exit out of here because we don't have WSL2 yet. Right now, it's just WSL1. So let's run WSL-list-verbose, and we can see, oh, it is running version 2. What you're very likely going to need to do is run WSL-set-default version 2, so that when you install a new distro, it uses WSL2. And in the case where you've just installed one that says it's version 1, you can set the version. So actually, I should probably be able to set this down to version 1 and then set it back to 2. In general, you're going to want to run WSL version 2. The one exception is if you're doing a lot of communication back and forth between the Linux system and your Windows system, between the file systems, then you might want version 1. But I found version 2 is quite a bit easier to work with and faster. It's tough to notice anything is missing except for system D, which we'll get to in a moment. All right, so we have WSL2 set up. Now we're just gonna open it up, which we can do with either typing in bash here or from the terminal, actually from the Windows menu. We should be able to just see Ubuntu. If we start typing, yeah, I can just run Ubuntu 20.04 on Windows. What I like to do is use VS Code. It's also got great integration. Like we've got copy paste integration between the two sides. You're going to want to grab an extension called Remote WSL. Here we go, and we'll install this one. We can just click this button down here and just open a new WSL window, and then we can just close this one. Okay, we got that set up, so we actually don't need our PowerShell window open anymore. We can just close that and make this full screen, be a little bit easier to follow along. And I'll bump up the font size as well. All right, so we're in the terminal. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to install some stuff that Ubuntu doesn't have by default that we need. So we're going to get unzip first of all. So sudo apt-get unzip. Type in my personal password, apt.get install unzip. Okay, there we go. And we're also going to get a number of things. I'm just going to copy paste here. So we're going to get wget and ca certificates. And now we're going to update. So sudo apt-get update. And that'll just update the packages available to us. And install some more. I'm going to put a -y on this. Yeah, full size that terminal here. So when I do a sudo apt-get install -y, that just auto confirms. It just pipes yeses to all the questions that all of these installations ask. We're just going with all the defaults. So getting GCC, make, autoconf, libssl-dev, libcursus5-dev. I'll put all of these up in the show notes on alchemist.camp so that you can just copy paste them from there instead of looking at what I type and then copying them in. So I just also installed another set of stuff. It's going to be a little bit slower because we're grabbing some fairly big ones here. I just skipped some of the installation time there so you didn't have to wait for it. I'll do sudo apt install, not apt-get, just apt install Postgres, PostgreSQL actually, and then PostgreSQL dash contrib, and this should install Postgres for us. And we'll say yes to all of them. We'll take a moment. Then once it's installed, we can check to see whether if it's installed or not just by trying to run PSQL. So it looks like everything is okay. Okay, so we have installed it. We've got Postgres 12. And in order to start it, all we need to do is sudo service PostgreSQL start. Let's do status first so we can see it's down, and change that to start. And now it's started up. We should be able to run PSQL like that. Role mark doesn't exist. Okay, that's fine. We can create that role. We can also create a password for Postgres. Now in local development, I usually just give Postgres the password Postgres. So sudo password Postgres. And I'm just going to set this to Postgres. That way, when running in local dev, many things use Postgres. Postgres is the credentials, and now our setup will work with them. Let's create the user as well. So sudo -u Postgres. So using Postgres's permissions, we'll create user Mark. Now we can sudo into Postgres. So sudo -u Postgres. So as Postgres, we'll run PSQL, the new user, because we have a user Mark. So we'll do password Mark. And again, it's local dev, so I'm just going to make password Mark. Okay, so that's basically everything we need to do to set up an initial user, set the password for Postgres, set the password for the new user. Now the one thing that's going to be a little bit annoying is Postgres is running and it is installed, but it's not going to, actually what we really want to do is just check the status. So it is running and we can connect to it as long as we give it a valid database user. Problem is, as soon as we exit and come back, it's not going to be running anymore. So we can see it's online now. We'll exit. Okay, now we can try running status again, go to our password again. You can see that Postgres is down. So problem is we don't have systemd to watch over our services and start them automatically on startup and that kind of thing, restart them if they go down. So what we need to do is put a line into our bashrc to set that. So let's just, actually we'll just use VS Code to do this. So our bashrc is going to be in our personal directory .bashrc. And yes, I do trust this. Go down to the bottom here, and we'll just add that line, sudo services or sudo service PostgreSQL start, like so. Save that. And now when we open a new terminal, we'll be asked our password immediately and it'll run. And if I can type in ASDF, okay, there we go. And now we can see that the database is started. Now it's kind of annoying every single time you open the terminal to be asked for your password. So what we'll do to get around that is we'll use a tool called vi-sudo to edit etc sudoers file, which gives permissions to users to run things. So let's run sudo vi-sudo -f etc sudoers. Oh geez, how do I get out of this? No, don't save that. Okay, we gotta get a better default editor here. Sudo update -alternatives and config editor. We want number 3. Okay. And now we have a reasonable editor. Okay, so this is the etc sudoers file. It says it must be edited via sudo. You actually can edit it with just vim or something, but that's not a good idea. VA sudo is made specifically for editing this file, and it does some safety checks. So this file is for granting permissions to users to do things. So for example, the root user may do anything for any file owned by anyone. Now, what we're going to add are a couple of lines similar to this one, except it's just going to be for your own user. And we're going to add no password. So this means the user can execute the command without a password. And it will be /user/sbin/service, and then also bin/pg cluster. I believe this should do what we need. So save that and exit our terminal again. Open it up again. And see, we just started it without running sudo. And since that command service and pg cluster are the two commands that were relevant for starting Postgres, they're also the same ones for checking the status. We can actually do service PostgreSQL status without sudo anymore as our main user. This is basically the only workaround I found to get Postgres starting up automatically without systemd on WSL for Windows 10. If you have Windows 11, there's another thing called WSL.conf file that you can edit that will make that possible. Here's some documentation directly from Microsoft on the WSL conf. It's in the distribution itself. So inside the Ubuntu file system, just go to /etc/WSL-conf. And if you are running Windows 11, which I have chosen not to upgrade to, you could add a block called boot. You could just run, instead of the service docker start, it would be service PostgreSQL start. There are a couple of other reasons you might want to use this, though, like setting the default user. So if you were to say you were to uninstall WSL, or say you were to use WSL's import and export features, which are actually super useful, just WSL-import, WSL-export. If we were to, say, export a backup of this WSL setup and then import it into a different computer, the default user would be root. And we'd actually want the default user to be Mark. And the way we can set that is in the WSL or the etc/WSL-conf. So just go there now, /etc/WSL.conf. There may not even be one at all on a fresh command. Looks like there isn't. Let's see. There is not. We could just make one though. So /WSL/WSL-conf. And then we can just set that same kind of user block, say default user equals Mark. And then whenever WSL starts up, instead of it being root, it would be starting up as Mark again. Those are the basics. Next thing we're going to grab is ASDF. Okay, so we're just going to grab Oh, no way. My tutorial came up first. That's probably just because of my browsing or searching habits. But basically, we're going to grab ASDF. We already got these dependencies. We're going to clone the Git repo. So after installing ASDF from the GitHub repo, next thing we need to do is add a couple of lines to our bash RC, which you may notice is already open since we added the line for Postgres. I'm going to go to the official GitHub page for ASDF, bump up the font again, and let's see here. They don't have those lines listed on the front page anymore. Let's go to getting started and bash and get. Okay, so these are the two that we need to add to the end of our bash RC. And we'll just put them in like so. The first one runs ASDF. So it's got a shell script. You need to run that before you have access to anything ASDF does. The second line will set up the completions. So let's save these, and we're not gonna start a new bash session yet. So you see that I've already installed from git clone. Now, if we try typing ASDF, nothing happens, doesn't work. The reason this didn't work is because all we did was copy the Git repo to our home directory. So it's not, we haven't really changed anything in our environment. What we need to do is run the top line, you see there on line 121 of ASDF. So it's going to be tilde as our home directory /.asdf, asdf.sh. There we go. So we run that. Now we type ASDF and we have access to everything it can do. And the completions are similarly just auto completions that are really nice. So if I were to type ASDF plugin -add, or say add with one A or with no D's, it doesn't autocomplete. But if I run this, now I can type ASDF plugin -at and then hit tab, autocompletes. So we're going to add one for Node.js. So each plugin in ASDF handles a single language. So the Node.js plugin basically does what NVM does. Great thing about ASDF is we keep all of our languages together. So let's ASDF list Node.js. No versions installed. Let's list all. This will show us everything that's available online. And we should see a whole bunch of versions. So we'll install 18.4.0. So ASDF install Node.js 18.4.0. And we can set it to our global preference. So go back up to list all Node.js, or to list Node.js. We can see there's one. If you do ASDF current, no version is set, and it gives us instructions on how to set it. So we do ASDF global. So if you do local, it will just set the language version for the directory you're currently in, and that way you can commit that file to version control. It's great. It makes a .tool-versions file. If you do global, it makes that same tool-versions file, but it puts it in your home directory, and it applies to everything on the system where there isn't a local setting. So ASDF global Node.js 18.4.0, and now we can see that we do have a global version coming in from our tool versions directory right here, or tool versions file in our home directory. Now let's get some more languages. ASDF plugin -add. Let's get Elixir, because that's what I always work with. Actually, to get Elixir, we need to get Erlang. So let's get Erlang and ASDF list all Erlang. Let's install 25.0.2. Okay, looks like that worked successfully. So let's get Elixir now. ASDF list all Elixir. ASDF plugin -add Elixir. And now I should be able to list all the versions of Elixir available. We'll get one 13.4 using Erlang 25 to compile it. Well, that was fast. Let's look at what we have set up. So ASDF current. We haven't set Elixir or Erlang versions. So ASDF global Elixir 1.4.25 and ASDF global Erlang 25.0.2. And what else is available through ASDF? What other languages could we install if we wanted to? Well, we can do ASDF list plugin, or I think it was ASDF plugin list. That shows us what we have. List all. You can see all the languages that ASDF can handle. All right, that's it for today. Hope you found this useful and that you have some happy coding from WSL with Windows. See you next time.